Hey everybody, and welcome to the Prep Talk podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with Amir. He is a new Amazon seller in my area, so I figured we'd meet up, and we're going to go over some questions that he has, and just kind of take this episode through the lens of somebody that's just starting, has questions, and then we'll talk a little bit about Amir. Why don't we just start by just introducing you? So Amir is on the timeline. What's the handle?
I had Nashus Cassius. That's NASHUSCASHUS. Yeah, man, I just started this like a couple of months ago. I stumbled upon you very early on. So first I want to say I appreciate you taking the time. I started about a couple of months ago, just trying to learn. A friend of mine put me onto it. And once I learned about it, I was like, this is definitely something that I could see myself taking on and developing, because I think other than just money, obviously, you learn a lot of great principles in Amazon that you'll need in business in general. So I just like to commit, get to it, and now here we are. Definitely have a lot of questions for somebody like you.
Well, and maybe we talk about why this kind of lined up. You messaged me. You were active on the timeline. I started to recognize you, and then saw the basketball video, the LeBron walk. I was like, okay, that would be fun to sit down. So just offering value in ways that maybe you don't even view it as offering value from the beginning, but it's like, okay, I see this guy's trying. He's putting himself out there. I respect that. So, great follow. So I absolutely recommend you follow him and, grow with him.
Appreciate it. Yeah. It's very important. Once you join like the lives, like Miles and the lives on YouTube, the first thing you'll hear them say for new beginners is put yourself out there, create the content, put your face out there, reach out to people. And I never had a Twitter. I never used Twitter before this.
Right.
But you just put yourself out there. You just show who you are, what you're doing in the Amazon space, and then you will stumble upon people like you, like Miles and all that, and just make sure you're active and you're documenting yourself. I know for me personally, people will follow me on Twitter, but if they don't have any media or anything like that, it's like,
yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything to work on or work with here.
Yeah.
And I think that also just putting yourself out there, it's an accountability measure. Because when I've done things that were big at the time, but now I look back at them, okay, I could do that again. Like I put it out there and I was like, okay, I need to go execute on what I'm saying. I said I'm going to go run a marathon. So if I don't do that, that would be very embarrassing, right? Like that would be a failure. So there's really no option. We're on a mission with that. It's a really good follow, really good example of what it looks like to just be active, to be starting, and to consistently be improving on a daily basis. But do you want to get into like any questions you had? And then
I'm ready.
Okay. All right, let's roll.
So for starters, like in regards to sourcing, when you first started out, how many hours per day were you doing it consistently until you felt like you were really getting like a comfortable flow with it?
But that's a really good question. I think that, like anyone, when you're first starting, you're really, really inefficient with your time. So you don't know where to look. You don't know what coupons you're going to be leveraging. You maybe don't have that network. So I was probably sourcing like 6-7 hours a day at first, and now that's down considerably, right? Like maybe an hour or two here and there. And then really what you're eventually able to do is kind of work in sprints. So maybe there's a week where I don't source because I bought a lot the week prior. So then you're buying some of that time back with like the skills that you've developed over time and the network.
Okay, cool. So for new beginners just starting out, I know you've seen a lot, you've experienced a lot, you've seen a lot of people. At what stage do you see a lot of people decide to give up the most?
So I think that's a good question. Probably like around 6 months, and I feel like that probably has to do with not mastering the fundamentals, and then also putting undue pressure on yourself. So maybe that looks like I'm not tracking my buys. I'm not putting them in an inventory lab so that I understand how much I'm actually making. In Amazon, it's a very it's fully an inventory-based business, and so you may not feel like you're making as much money as the orange bars say, because you have to reinvest it if you want it to keep living. So I think that like Mia's a really good example of somebody that shout out Mia. Yeah,
I think that's her.
Yep. She started off slow. She had some constraints on the credit side, but when I look at her, that growth just month over month, like, to me, I would expect that she's running a very, very tight ship because, okay, I don't have the funds to go, put down 50K in a weekend, but I'm going to squeeze every bit out of everything I do buy. So those fundamentals are like really, really strong.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think like if you get those fundamentals down and then you kind of tune out the noise on like the timeline, it's easy to compare yourself to others. Not everybody's in the same situation. There's people that are like 19 running 3/4 of a million every month.
Yeah,
Sawyer, Tim, but they've been doing this for probably like 6-7 years. And so you have to really understand how much of that time has like allowed them to compound their skills, and they're just going to be steps ahead of you because they've put in that time.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So, okay, I'll definitely be focused on that, aware of that as I begin to approach, I guess, the 6-month mark.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's why people like you here, just helping us get through it.
Yep.
And, so as a beginner, there's a lot of different things you can do. There's the sourcing, there's the, other aspects of Amazon, like just because I know that eventually it becomes into a game of systems.
Right.
So in the beginning, in that regard, what do you think beginners should focus on the most, other than the sourcing? Because we all know that's important. But what do you think are some skills and some systems that they should focus on in the beginning that will carry them out the duration forward?
I think understanding the entire journey of the customer. So, the entire from not only them buying, but even prior to that. So you're buying, you need to understand all of your costs. So you then need to understand. I'm going to sell this item and it may be returned. What does that mean? If it gets returned, how profitable can I be if I'm running, say a 20% return rate, because that's just a highly returned item. So understanding those fees and everything from the Amazon side is going to be really, really important. And from my experience, navigating Seller Central can be difficult. Like there's a lot of different reporting options. There's a ton. So that's where I really like to just go leverage Inventory Lab. It rolls it all up for you. It's very simple. And so then I can get that, ASIN level, like look and say, say I had a 50% ROI on an item, but it got returned at a 30% clip. Okay, I didn't make money on that because that's a heavily returned item. Is there something with the listing that may be misleading? Is there something with the product that people just hate? So then understanding that and just having that data in place to then inform how you spend your time adapting to what the market's telling you, I think is critical. Like, I think that's like the number one thing, and why, like you will see listings where there are people that are simply not making money.
Yeah.
Or they're doing something fraudulent with like the shipping labels or whatever the case may be. But you're not one of those people. You need to be able to learn to like recognize that and then say, okay, was this a good buy? Is this something I'm going to avoid in the future? And then just continuously iterating on that, and then you'll have a really good sense of what you should be doing in the future.
Well, that's great information. I didn't think to even to look in. Okay.
Well, that's something that's difficult for like newer sellers. I think is like there's a lot of different softwares and such that they feel expensive. Like it's like $70, but if you're spending 10, 20, 30K, I want to make sure that investment is actually making me money, right? So having those data insights is going to allow you to then operate with a lot of confidence moving forward.
Okay. So we know we got the basic software. You get the Seller Ramp and Keep, which are basically essential for all beginners. I know for me personally, I only use Seller Ramp and Keep. I don't have like Inventory Labs or anything like that. Because, I had a subscription. I'm still trying to get, Amazon to be able to pay for the basic subscriptions itself.
Right.
So at what point do you think, like for me, this is a personal question. For what point do you think that I get to, it would be a good idea to like get the Inventory Labs, get a repricer and all that? Yeah,
I think it's going to vary for each person, right? So it depends on your life circumstances. So say, for example, you have a 9-to-5 that you could funnel a little bit of cash into that. That would be, maybe you do it a little earlier. But I think when you start doing like FBA shipments and you're sending out, maybe you're doing 25K in revenue a month, those things might start to make sense.
Okay.
Because, if you're consistently building, I think then, okay, you're going to want that. You're going to want to make sure that everything's kind of going as you would expect it to. I think maybe some good inflection points would be, okay, I'm in a prep center. I want to have the insight into making sure that what I send them is going out. And then, it's like, if I have all that data with inventory laps, you can really use that to kind of measure their quality. Okay. Because you don't see the product unless you're talking to them saying, hey, send me photos of everything. But maybe your prep center is doing a poor job prepping your units. Like, I personally haven't run into that, but it's like, if you have data and there's like then a deviation from what you would expect, okay, there's a problem somewhere in the supply chain. Where is it? I gotta go find it. But I think if you're doing FBM, you have a lot of control. When you get into FBA, you have a lot less control. So then you need to have that, like those systems in place to monitor how things are going. I think would be the lesson. So, I mean, 25K, I think might make sense. But if you only have like 5 to 10 ASINs, then okay, I can do that. You can do that personally, right?
Yeah. I do have to make a little confession. I know that it's really a general rule of thumb for beginners to do mostly FBM.
Okay.
But I've quickly turned into an FBA person.
Okay.
I got to get back to it.
There's nothing wrong with it.
I got to get back to it. But that was just a little side note.
Well, I mean, it depends on like, what you have going on in your life. Like, I think FBM is a great tool, especially, in those peak selling moments, because you'll get a lot of buy box share. But, if you're, family commitments, you have your 9 to 5 or whatever the hell you have, maybe FBM doesn't make sense for you. So, I mean, FBA is also great. Both work.
Okay. So you're giving out a lot of good points. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Okay.
So, the 3 most important rules of advice for a beginner like myself.
Yep.
And then I'm going to make you, out of those 3, I'm going to make you give me the most important one.
Okay.
So go ahead. Take your time.
Yeah. So I think, we say it quite a bit, but I think understanding that everything in your business, like the responsibility for everything comes back to you. So it's like not the price tankers, it's not whomever else. Everything comes back to you. It's the evaluations that you're making. So having a deep level of like personal responsibility and understanding that at the end of the day, the Amazon business you run is going to be as profitable or as, maybe not as profitable as you make it. It's you're the core reason. I think then putting yourself out there, we talked about that early. I think that's super important because there's nothing like leveraging your own ego and then saying you're going to do something. Like, it just fuels you. Yeah. So I think that that's extremely important. And then I think one mindset that I have is that as the owner, you have to be willing to do the like lowest level task. And I've noticed this in the corporate space where people feel entitled because of whatever position they have. They're higher on the org chart, what have you. They feel like they don't have to do things that are at the bottom. But if you're not willing to do things at the very bottom, like I don't think that you deserve that role as someone higher. Not that you have to be doing it consistently, but if say you have a team of VAs and someone's sick, you have to be willing to pick that ball up. Because it's like it's your baby at the end of the day, your business. So I think that those 3 are the ones.
I mean, these CEOs of these major companies, they got to where they got because they had to make the decision to go in there and do it all, really.
Yep.
Like, that's so important. Like you were mentioning earlier before we started recording, that's so important to make sure that you know personally how to do the groundwork.
Yep.
And then you can build from there.
Right.
And allocate from there and delegate from there.
Yep.
So,
well, I think I think it's called like servant leadership. Like you really have to prioritize the people on your team. And I think that there's a little bit, I think that's why so many people are attracted to Amazon and like internet money, is because we've lost that a little bit with kind of what I view as like a little bit of credentialism. Like, oh, I've got my MBA. That means that I'm entitled to behave a certain way. It's not the case. Yeah. That degree does not mean it doesn't mean anything, to be perfectly honest. So I think that we have like allowed labels and such to detract a little bit from what we're all doing. We're all trying to improve the situation. Now, you're going to have to do some grunt work occasionally to make that happen.
Yeah. So out of those points you gave me,
Yeah.
which one do you say is the key to take home with you?
I think the second one is probably the most important, because I think it leads into everything else. Like, if you put yourself out there and you're creating that, like, that situation for yourself to then be accountable for the things that you say that you're going to do, I think that fuels it. And then just that layering on the other two of, like, you got to be willing to do the grunt work, and then you have to be responsible for everything. Like, you are the reason things are going well with it.
Yeah. So continue on that point of putting yourself out there. Obviously, you put yourself out there, you network, you meet people, and then groups start to form.
Right.
So as people who are just out there, just starting out forming their groups, what do you think are some, like, I'll say, like 2 to 3 important things to make sure that your group has as you try and build and grow together?
Yep. So Max talks about this a lot. Like, you're looking for people that you would be comfortable, like, hanging out with and spending your time with. And I think that that will fuel into all of the core relationship, like, standards that you need. So if you would be willing to, go play basketball with somebody or do whatever, like, you're going to have that level of communication that's required to hold each other accountable. It's going to fuel into all of the core, like, relationship aspects that you need to have. I think one aspect would be realizing that it's possible that the first group that you're in is not going to be the one that you're in forever. Because if you think about it, you're meeting people, like, you may really like them. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe that pot of people doesn't mesh as you would have hoped. Maybe certain people don't share the same level of aspirations that you do. And I would, that initial group might not be the last group. And that's okay. You can still be friends with the people that you tried to do the first, like, mastermind with. And, like, I mean, I've been in some groups, and some of them kind of, they fizzled a little bit, but still talk to those people. We now have kind of a core group that I talk to maybe a little bit more, but everybody's on their own journey. And I think being comfortable with the fact that the first one doesn't work is a big point there.
So when you started out and you were forming groups early on, the main thing you looked for was, is this somebody that I can hang out with?
Yep.
And, be around and spend time with, converse with, and all that?
Yep.
Okay.
And we find that out, like, I found that out through getting on Zoom calls with random people on Twitter. So, like Steven's a great example. When I first met Steven, I was a little overwhelmed with Steven, and I was like, a lot of energy. And then didn't really talk to him for like a month and a half, but then we met at ASD, and we hit it off. And it was like, okay, in person, I was like, okay. And now he calls me on a regular basis. So, like, I think that's something that may be a good theme, is that immediate gratification is not, it's not how relationships are built. They take time to mature. So being patient with it, like, that first message may not, like, lead to you making thousands of dollars on Amazon, but maybe 4 or 5 months down the line, you guys have formed a relationship, a lot of time to mature, and then you can make a little money.
You're in the corporate world.
Yep.
You got experience in that. Hearing this Amazon stuff. I feel like business, in a sense, does teach people a lot of life lessons that they need in general. So for you, what have you seen what are some qualities that you developed in Amazon and your work experience that you've seen pour over into your personal life? And like important things that you take with you till the rest of the time.
Yeah, I think when I started being active on Twitter, I was not comfortable on camera. I'm more comfortable on camera now, and now I've actually leveraged that in my 9-to-5 role. I feel like I've become a better communicator for it. Being around people that are ambitious, not afraid to speak their mind, has been really helpful for me. When you get into large institutions, there's a tendency for folks to kind of just go with the flow. And that sometimes has got me in trouble. But I think that I prefer that. I'd rather speak my mind. In everything that I do and say, kind of in the corporate space, is aim to create value as if I was running that business. okay, I see this gap. We should go address this.
Yeah.
And that may go against like a cultural norm within a corporate space, but you can beat that down over time. Like you can win that fight if you just like continuously, go after it.
Nice. Yeah.
So those are a couple of things that have served me well from being around the family on Twitter.
Wow. Very insightful. So, for beginners, I think when we start out, the next thing that's on our mind is scale. Right?
Yep.
And it's scale and it's scale and it's scale.
Yep.
Chat scale, as you guys like to call it.
Yep.
And but like for us, people who have like personal lives, people around us, things that people like to do and spend time with. For you, you have a wife.
Yep.
So as you're scaling, as you're spending all that time, how did you learn how to be able to kind of compartmentalize this? Like all the working, all the work to scale, and then also feeding into your personal life, the people that you care about, the people that you love around you.
Yeah, so that I think is a really good question, and I think can offer a lot of help to folks. And I've talked a lot about this with Nick Spisak because he's kind of in a similar situation. He's got kids, he's got a wife, he's got the 9-to-5, a lot of time constraints, right?
Wow.
So I think setting the expectation with those important people in your life.
Okay.
From the beginning. I didn't do that well last year, but going into this year, I said, here's the game plan. Here's what I'm thinking from, Amazon, the different businesses that I run. This is how I think it's going to come to play for our relationship. And we had something to compare it to from last year, right? So last year was a lot of imbalance, whereas this year is more, slow and steady. And just, making sure that I'm taking care of the commitments that I need to. But I think just clear communication around it is what you need to do. And then when you have, luckily for me, she's always been super supportive. So I didn't really have to worry about that. But not every spouse is going to be that supportive. Friends and family may have questions because it's not something that they see on a daily basis. And so finding a spot where you can be fair in how you communicate about it, but also very firm on the direction that you're going to and making an effort not to waver from that direction is something that you learn over the next 5 to 6 months. Because you don't want to shit on people for not sharing the same values or the same vision.
Yeah.
But there will be folks that are going to be looking after your safety and what has been deemed like the normal safe path, and this is a deviation from that at all, to be frank. So you're looking out for your best interests, and you have to really appreciate that.
Yeah. That's gonna help so much, especially because I want to be. So just knowing that for when the time comes, that's really gonna be helpful. And you people out there, I know y'all coupled up out there, so you gotta listen to this man's advice. That's very good advice. Thank you for that.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that might be.
That's it.
Yeah,
I think that's a good pod. I think it's kind of a cool one to do.
Yeah,
a little bit different. Yeah. But yeah, man, I appreciate you coming out. Luckily, we got as Miles calls it, we're sun maxing.
Yeah.
Finally in Wisconsin, we picked the perfect day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate you coming out and meeting with me, and this is a great episode, and I'm looking forward to dropping it. But one more time, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Nashus Cassius, NASHUSCASHUS. That's pretty much the only platform I'm really active on in the Amazon space. So definitely give me a follow there. I'll follow you back. I'm not one of those people. I'll follow you back. And just continue to tap into this because before we wrap, I gotta give you the flowers, bro. Because for someone as a beginner, like someone that's like you with all the experience, but just constantly giving it back to us, man. Like I appreciate it so much. Even you taking the time out to come to here. So
I appreciate that.
Continue to take advantage of what we have here in the Amazon space. I mean, there's others like you, but just continue to learn. You got to fall in love with learning, fall in love with the process, and people like Pete, making it easy. So just continue to take advantage of the resources we have. And once again, I want to thank you so much.
Appreciate it. It's a great pod, but we will wrap up there and catch you next time on the Prep Talk podcast. Peace.